Right. Well, good evening, everybody, and it's my pleasure to be here tonight representing the Sustainable Environment Commission and providing an update on our activities for the last year. First, I'd like to start with a brief review of the mission statement. It's a bit wordy, but the general idea is to solicit advice and information about sound environmental management practices for promoting public health and safety for the citizens of Moscow. And really the way I look at it is we answer and do the bidding for the mayor and the city council. We get ideas for topics and things like that we should look into, provide advice. We have technical expertise, or if we don't, we know where to find it. And then we also are responsive to citizens as well that may have questions, concerns, and things like that. We look into it and report back. And what we'd like to spend just a brief few minutes is going through some of the topics and issues we looked into over the past year. First off, probably one of the bigger projects we worked on over the year was a review of the Water Conservation Plan. This has been a very recent topic for the council. I know there was a workshop last Wednesday, if I remember correctly. Nicole Baker was the key person working on this draft and was very conscientious. As you all know, this report is quite detailed, and Nicole visited the Sustainable Environment Commission several times, probably starting back in November. She would come present ideas. We're not short on opinions and advice, and so we gave her quite a bit. And really the idea was how to sift through this very large, very detailed document, point out areas where we had questions that we felt other people might have questions, and also areas of concerns, gaps, and things like that. And so this draft that you saw, number 3, last Wednesday, was a result of quite a few iterations. Nicole was very patient with our questions, not only of the commission, but as I'll point out towards the end of the presentation, we have quite a few citizens that attend the meetings, and they had questions and comments as well. So this was one we were particularly proud of. As you all know, particularly with the weather we've had this summer, water is a key issue on the Palouse, and I was glad to see comments not only from the workshop and council, but certainly came up at our meetings. This conservation plan buys us some time, but certainly does not solve the water problems. And that was a comment that we certainly wanted to put forward as we put our 2 cents behind this report. So kudos to Nicole for doing a great job, and I'm looking forward to seeing this plan go forward. Another big issue this year in the city of Moscow was the adoption of the single stream recycling plan, and we asked Tim Davis to come give a presentation at the SCC. He did so, and another very patient person. He answered lots of questions. People have strong feelings about recycling in the city, and certainly the commission members did as well. We were quite happy to see the response that Tim gave, and again, very patient in answering our questions and concerns, and I was very happy to see this plan go forward, and looking forward to seeing this single stream recycling go forward in the city of Moscow. Another big one that we work on pretty much every year now is a review of the city streets pesticides plan. Tyler Palmer from the City Streets came and gave a presentation along with, I believe it was Joe Evans from Scholl Brothers. They've been contracting with the city for many, many years, and really the issue here is just to take a look at the pesticides that are being used. I'm using pesticides in the broad sense. That includes herbicides, insecticides, et cetera, et cetera. But what's being used, why it's being used, and really have Joe as well as Tyler explain the city's policy on pesticides use. And really it's used in a very, in my opinion, sound environmental manner when it's needed, not just spray and pray. And there are some strong opinions about pesticides, of course, and I like the fact that the city also has a no spray policy, and I think that's very important. That's something that the SCC encourages people to do too. If you do not want pesticides sprayed along your section of a roadway, for example, there is a no spray list you can get on. That's, I think, being responsive to the city's citizens' concerns. And so we had really no major issues with this whatsoever. Joe did go through and explain the new edition that's up there in handwritten Esplanade, I think is how you pronounce it, but why it's being used. And the idea is just to have alternatives. There are preferred uses for the sprays, and if they don't work, there are needs to have alternatives. So again, no issues as much as just having a chance for a citizens commission to review this list and the policies in general. So I was glad to see that. Mayor's Earth Day Awards. This is a long-standing tradition in the city, and the intent of the awards is to recognize Moscow residents and organizations for activities conducive to environmental sustainability. This has been going on for a while, and Mayor Lambert has continued this tradition, and I applaud him for that. The SEC takes kind of the major role in soliciting nominations and as well as organizing them, referring them to the mayor for his approval. And this is just a short list. I won't go through why everybody was nominated. If you were at the council meeting or read any of the press releases, you know about this. But again, I applaud the mayor as well as the council for continuing this tradition. It really is nice to see recognition where recognition is due. It's really important. Lastly, we staffed a commission table at the farmers market. That may not sound like a lot. You just sit out there and watch your friends go by for the most part. But what I found from doing this is it's really a great way to do outreach, to really listen to people that may not show up at the council, or excuse me, at the commission meetings at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday night, but people are at the farmers market, and you have people coming by with all sorts of advice, all sorts of questions, and I think it's just another way to talk to the people that live in this city, find out what's on their minds, what they're concerned about, have some ideas on what to pursue as potential issues for the Sustainable Environment Commission. And I can tell you, by far, water was the biggest issue. So I'm glad to see the water conservation plan go forward. Certainly that problem is not licked, but it's one that's on people's minds. Did have one fellow had quite an interesting proposal that I'll share with you another day. If you have a couple $1 billion, I think we can make it work, but he would have solved all the Palousas water problems. So you certainly meet some interesting people when you're sitting at a table at the farmers market. But I think it's a great way to do outreach, not only for our commission, but I know dealing with Amanda, other commissions are out there as well, and I think it's a very important function for a commission to do. I want to just share with you as a final slide or two the current roster and thank and recognize everybody on there. I am the chair. Scott Fidel has been the past chair, and I travel quite a bit and unfortunately have to miss a fair amount of the meetings, and Scott most ably fills in, as does Andy Boyd. Patrick Johnson is a law student right now. He'll be on there for another year or two. Daniel Sitter, unfortunately, is leaving us this summer. Keegan, as you all know, is a sustainability intern. We're very fortunate as a Citizens Commission to have high school and university presence on there. I really applaud young people showing up. When I was a high school and a college kid, I didn't even know what council was or any of these commissions, and so to have them show up and not only be there but to contribute, I think really speaks very highly of these young people. Luke Miller, and also her name's not up there, but Aaron Ingram is another high school student, and they show up to meetings and they are very, very active young people, which gives me hope for the future. I'm glad to see that. Ava is our UI person as well. We have one vacancy. And lastly, I want to thank Art as our council liaison. He really provides a lot of insight. When we have these wild ideas, he'll kind of rein us back in a little bit, saying, well, yeah, but, a little dose of reality. And then Tom Scaloran is our staff liaison, and he keeps me on the straight and narrow and makes sure I'm not breaking too many rules. So I want to thank everybody that serves on the commission. We have some citizens that are quite involved that show up probably more regularly than I do at these meetings, and they provide great insight as well. And with that, I'll thank you for your attention and take any questions that you have.
Well, Steve, the Sustainable Environment Commission does wonderful work, and you brought up some key things. You talked about Nicole Baker doing her water conservation plan last Wednesday, the 1st, in front of this group, and it was really an excellent report and a lot of good ideas, and we all know that it's an issue that we're going to have to come up with a solution and work on and get done someday. And the thing of it is like you said, that if we had the thing is, if we had all the money we needed, an easy solution, we could get it. But it costs a lot of dough in order to do that. We all know that. But point being made, I think we're getting closer. The realization is someday we've got to do something. We know that, and so that's something that this body will be working for.
Great.
So, thank you for your work. Art, you got some comments?
Yeah, as liaison, I'm really aware of how hard everybody on the commission works and the good ideas that people come up with, and looking out not only for ways the city can go about its business better, but also reminding the rest of town and this body in particular in follow-up kind of ways of what it is that we should be doing and watching out for issues that we may not be aware of. So everybody on there does a really bang-up job, and I'm really pleased to be associated with this commission.
Well, Well, I applaud not only our commission, of course, but the others. I'm quite familiar with a few of the others, and I think it's great that we have so many involved citizens that care about the city. That's important. All right. Well, thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Steve. And Tom, thank you, sir.
All right.